back, viewers. Today we're going to learn how to set up an automated test pipeline in Logstash. So last time where we left off in part 1 was that we set up this locally running instance of Logstash which ran inside the Docker container with this script here. So as a recap, basically we started the Docker command. We mounted the local test directory into the Docker image, where the Docker, we're starting basically a Logstash 717.3 Docker image, right? So once this your local directory gets mounted into the container, it will be able to, Logstash will be able to find it and refer to your Logstash configurations in this directory. So what we want to do today is go one step further than that, is make an automated test, basically set up for automated testing, unit testing that is. Last time when we ran this, basically what we did was we're able to run these pipelines from the local test directory, but we also had to send the events to Logstash using standard in. So we just typed it on the keyboard. We typed A is hello world, and the pipeline picked it up and basically copied it to a field called B. It's a very simple pipeline, just did one thing only, right? Copied field A to B. Now, if the logic was a little bit more complex, then of course you would really want to see if your logic works or not. You would have to write tests that can be repeated and can be run over and over again, right? So you wouldn't want to be typing that on standard in each time you run this. So what we need to have a way is, number one, is to store the test cases you want to execute, and then be able to execute and validate them. So in order to, probably the most reliable way to do that is to change our Logstash input pipeline from standard in. What we can do is use a file input, and in order to use a file input, we can just change this std into a file input. And the way we do that is we'll generate a input plugin that will read from a directory that's inside this local test directory. It will read one file at a time and send it into this into our transform pipeline, and then generate an output. So let's give that a try. To our Copilot to generate the code. Generate input plugin configuration. This takes input from a file in a directory where each file is one input event. The file can be multi-line. The event multi-line. JSON. Okay, and there we are. Let's take that, copy it. Paste it here. Oops, a little too much. Okay. Save it. And let's give this a try. So the path to your directory, let's make it so that it's a local directory in here. Let's create this new folder called test inputs. I'll just get test data. Okay, and then in here, let's create a file, a test file. Test1.json. And really, we just want to put the most basic test case. Here is field A, right? The same thing we had before was this hello world. Okay. Save it. And let's see how this runs. Okay, so let's go back to running our run Docker and Logstash. But before we do it, we're going to change this directory, right? The path to it. So I think this directory needs to be relative to the mount point. So we're mounting it, the current directory, into this Logstash pipeline. So it will end up being in there, in this directory. So just copy this. Here. It'll be a local test / test data. Let's give this a try. So save it. And once again, in the window, we'll run our run Logstash in Docker. Oh, the daemon's not running. Let me fix that. For daemon running. So we have to make sure also there's a new line at the end of this test data file. I discovered that one off screen, but we go like this and we run it again. We see here now that it processed the file. See exactly the input here, hello world, and the transform is obviously executed because field B is now put into the output event. So let's just put, what we can do is we could create another file here called test2 JSON. And what we can put in there is another input. We can put A is ABC. Right, I'm going to save that one. And you notice immediately we'll pick this up. Okay, field A becomes ABC, and it copies it to field B. Right? So that's, you can see that if you put all your tests here, your test inputs here, it will read them one by one, right? And process each event one by one. So next, all we have to do now is write some validation logic for this one. So usually, you know, for test cases, you have to make sure that you know which test case or which test scenario you're using. So one of the fields in your test input have to represent that. Otherwise, it could be very difficult for you to identify the test scenario that you actually want. So if we used field A as the test scenario identifier, then we can go ahead and do that. So let me stop this one. You'll see what I mean. I stop this. We can modify it so that field A is called test1. Right? We can give it more data here. So let's just use a different field. Let's call it X. And this will be, let's change this one to hello world. Okay. Test2 can be called, A would be test2, and X would be something else. Now, we're going to write some test validation logic in a moment. Before we do any kind of test logic, let's make our transformation, our original pipeline, do something interesting. So right now I'm going to ask Copilot to generate a Logstash filter, which checks for the existence of a field called x and generates a field called x lower, which is the lowercase value of x. Okay. And we'll put that in our transform. Very simple, right? Okay, so let's copy this filter. Copy. And we'll put it in our original filter pipeline here. So we'll just add it on. It came in as one line, but anyways, we'll work with that. What we do is kill this one. We'll start this back up and see if it does what we think it does. Okay, so run it again. Okay, so what did it do? So it looked at it and it processed in a different order, but it doesn't matter. Let's go back to test 1. We know we put the input of x as a hello world, right? It was actually all uppercase H and lowercase, and world is uppercase W. So in this case, the x lower field became hello world, all lowercase. So in that case, basically this test is working, right? Okay, so let's stop this one. So that's what our transform does, but we don't know, this is a very simple transform, but we want to do that in a test. So what we want to do is write test logic that simulates this one and verifies it, right? So we can go back to our code. What we need to do is edit our output pipeline in our local test directory, and this one has to verify that each test case comes out the same way, right? So let's do this one. So our test case will be like this: generate a Logstash filter which checks if a field called A exists and if it is what we can do is, well, we just have to make sure that the value is always lowercase in this case, right? So we can just skip the A part, but this is a way you can actually make each test case do a different thing if the transform was really complex, right? In this case, it's a very simple one, so we can say checks if a field called X exists and that X lower and that the field X lower is equal to the value of X in lowercase. Now it's not doing exactly what we asked it to do here. It's just checking simply if the x exists and add a field x lower, which is lowercase, right? But it didn't actually understand what we asked it to do. So let's just do it again. We'll generate it again. In the generate. Look at the sample. Check. Validate that the X lower field is the lowercase of the field X. If it is not, then we then insert a new field called test fail and set it to true. So I'll force it to generate. Okay. Okay, so this Ruby code essentially does what we want it to do. This doesn't do a thing here. It just actually does the transformation. We don't actually want to do the transformation. We just need it to verify. So let's do this. Let's copy this one. This part of it. Just the Ruby. I think it goes up to here. Yeah. Copy. So AI is sometimes not so great, right? Okay. But it does make this does help us to go a little faster. But you have to know what it's doing. Okay. Okay, so now we'll a test failed true will be set if it's if the x lower is not the lowercase of x. Okay, so let's do that. So we're just verifying that the transform is doing what it's supposed to do, right? So let's run that again. Let's see what it does. So this is lowercase. So you notice here that test fail will only show up if the transform isn't working properly. So in this case, everything in the transform is working properly because I don't see any test failed. I don't see any test fails here, right? Test failed fields. So let's simulate an example. Let's remove the transform. Let's break the transform just to prove that this is working. So I go back to my transform now, my filter pipeline. And let's say I remove this line. Let's comment it out. Okay. And let's just make x lower equal to x. We'll do the same way. Okay. Add field. X lower is equal to x. So we've changed the transform, but this is sort of like implementing the requirements in the wrong way. But your test case is going to reveal this, right? So we'll save it. We'll run it now. What we should get is a test failed message field being injected into here. So what do we have? Slower is something else. And did not output this. So actually, event set unless. So it did not actually work. It did not set test. Oh, no, it did. Here you see. Test failed, right? It's glaring at me right here. I didn't see it. This test failed is true here. Okay, because in this case, in none of the cases that they are, except for this one, is interesting. This one is a false. Uh, it's what we call in testing a bad test data, right? Because all of the input itself was lowercase, so it came out like this, and I couldn't find it. But anyways, I hope you're seeing the main point of this is that we are able, if you write the tests in a clever way, you will be able to detect a failed test case or a pass in another sense. So we can even now we can make this better by basically now summarizing the test results. We should have ideally we should be able to know each we should be able to summarize which test case has failed, and we can set it in our output. All right, so let's do that. To do that, I've come up with the summary. Basically, I come up with a summary line. Now I added a separate piece of Ruby code here that shows that if there's any event that's set with the test failed property called true, if it's set in there, there's a summary line, a summary field called test result, and that test result is equal to failed when test failed is equal to set to true, and pass otherwise, right? And on the output, we just do a single line output and print this information out. Now I've pre-run this test case, and you see here that it says test case 1, test result failed. Test case 2, test result passed. All right, because the test case is passing. So we run it like this. let's pretend we run this guy, and this is what we got. So obviously we need to fix our transform. There's something wrong with it in this case, right? So we can go back to our filter pipeline and re-enable. We'll comment out this line here that we put in as an error, right? And this is the right transform. So we do this, we save it, and rerun this test case. Hopefully it will pass both test cases. There we go. Test case 1, test case 2, they pass. They run in backwards order, and in fact it probably runs in the order of the file creation date with the newest one first. But that doesn't matter. Your test case, all you want to know is that either if any one of your test cases pass or failed. But putting this as part of your automated testing, coming into the standard output like this, is good, but you need a way to basically check if all of your test cases have passed or failed, and you can't do that at an individual as an individual event here. What you need to do is when you run this Logstash, this whole test system here, the shell script that runs it, the run Logstash in Docker, you need to be able to from here validate that each line coming out is has a pass. And in order to do that, we need to capture the output from the Docker run, or you can output it into another file in your local test directory, and you can validate that. But let's try to validate it on the standard out. Okay, so let's give that a try. And then we'll go to our AI. Okay, so basically the basic thing is that we need to run this in order to capture its output. I think we need to run this in the background, right? Run one Docker command in the background process. Okay, and we need to we also got to stop the test case, stop the Docker once everything is done. So we need to capture the process ID. And then what we got to do is watch well, in this case, I don't think we'll watch the standard output because you can't capture the standard output on here. But what you can do, we can watch, we can pipe this. We can pipe this. Okay. Well, back on the process and pipe it to a local file, right? To a test result file. .log file. Okay, we can capture the process ID, watch the standard output. Not the standard output, watch the test result file. .log file. Until a certain timeout. Let's say, I don't know, let's say 60 seconds. Okay, maybe 60 seconds. Or that there are the same number of lines in the test results.log file as there are in the local test data directory. As there are files in the test data directory. Okay. When either condition is met, terminate the Docker process, and then we gotta look at it. If it's passing, if there are no failures in the test result file, then exit script with exit code 0. And as you know, exit code 0 is universally known as a pass, right? As a test script execution success, and exit code 1 when there is a failure. There are failures. So this is going to be a monster to implement if you don't know Bash script very well, but it's extremely easy to implement when you ask AI to implement it for you. So let's just make sure we got the language right, and hopefully it will generate this thing for us. Okay, so we won't even tell it it's a Docker command or anything. It just we'll just let it generate. Let's see. I'll put here. So let's go like this. That's our idea, so let's just try to generate it. Okay. Generate a bash script okay, which does the following. So execute a command. Let's just call it command A. Okay? A command A dot sh in the background and redirects standard output to a file called testresults.log. Then capture the process ID of A. Watch, and then we then need to watch the test results of log file to check how many lines exist. Okay, we then watch. Okay, let's just skip out the line. We then watch the test result log file to check how many lines exist. It needs to have, okay, wait, the script, the a.sh, okay, it makes this. The a.sh background process is terminated when one of two conditions exist. Conditions is true. 1. Timeout of, say, 60 seconds, or 2. Test results.log file has, okay, well, we can actually, let's remove this line, make it easier for it to understand. Okay, the a.sh background process terminated when one of two conditions is true. Okay, when any one of the two following conditions is true. 1, timeout of 60 seconds, or 2, has as many lines as there are files in the let's just give it a file in the directory I don't know, test data. Okay, let's see if it can handle this. Let's see if it's right. Okay, so it defines a count lines. Okay, count files and count lines. These two are correct. And then, well, I'll do this now. It'll check it. Okay, it checks for 1 second. Okay, So let's copy this. Let's see if it'll work. Let's put this here. And then we'll just take this, our nice line here, we'll comment it out up here. We'll copy it. And substitute it. We don't have to tell it that it's Docker. Okay, we'll set background, capture the PID, that's correct. And we'll adjust this one. This is in the local test directory, right? Find local test data. Okay, wc.l, that's correct. Test results. Yeah, okay, let's give this one a chance. It looks right on the surface anyways. Okay, so let's try it. Here's the first problem. Input device is not TTY. Okay. Oh, I see why. This is the issue. It's because it's exec minus IT. If we run it in the background, the terminal does not have input. I think we can fix this one by just adding we actually don't need it to be IT. Let's see what happens to us. Oh. Could not find them. Okay, I see what happens. It took all the log output as this thing as well. Okay, so this approach is not going to work because the log output is forwarded. So basically what we need to do is be clever about this. This output, we'll change it to output to a file, to a file output. So let's do that. Write a Logstash pipeline output plugin which outputs to file, one line per event. Okay, let's see what it gives us. Well, we don't want a complicated custom file. We just need the file output. Standard output plugin. Okay, there we go. So just copy this part of it and paste it into our code. Just substitute this part. that's the path. The codec line is basically this. So let's copy everything from line into there. And there we go. So we can comment this one out. And the path to our output file should be let's just take that same directory. It's going to be within our, I had this file somewhere before. It should be this pipeline file here, local test. We can put it in the local test directory. So since everything will be together, right? So we put this back here. Paste it in. Test results. .log. Okay. So let's run this one now. Let's look at this one here. It'll execute. However, we need to make, we need to make modification here? It'll look at test files, look at test results, but we'll change it so it looks in the local test directory. Test results.log. So it'll do the same thing now, right? And then what we need to do is, before this script starts, we should delete the test results file so it won't run again, right? The old results won't affect the current results. So let's just do that. Let's delete this. Let's tell it to delete. So and rf slash not slash, local test slash test result log. All right, save. Now let's run it. Oh, the GE operator. Okay, so basically it's trying to start the thing, but what is happening is there's no such file or directory. Line 28 is complaining on this script because it doesn't exist. So what we need to do is also add, it doesn't exist yet before it runs. So we have to put this one, we have to put a check in here. Okay, so -e I don't remember if I have to quote that or not, but then return this. Otherwise, we return this 0. Okay. Wait, still not doing it. Gee. 50, 31, and 50, 31. Okay, so we modify. Let me ask Copilot to modify this one. Oh, let's just check this. Syntax on the following and bash script. That's right. Okay. Echo 0. That makes sense because it all the output of this goes into the last output is being returned. And will this still cause a problem? Probably not if it outputs properly. Let's see what this does. Oh, required number of lines, test results reached. Terminating process. Let's see what's in here. Oh, it executed really quickly. Test case, result pass and pass. Okay, let's just make sure we're not fooling ourselves here. Let's make this one fail. So let's modify the pipeline or the test case again. Let's break the test. The filter pipeline. Let's put the wrong one back and comment this one out. And execute again. Okay, all right, terminating process, and what do we get? That's correct. Test passes, test case 2 is passed, and test 1 has failed as expected. So our pipeline and our test execution mechanism is working correctly here. So let me go back and fix this one. So the next thing we got to do to make this even better is to have this script itself return either 1 or 0. And the reason why we want to do that is because if this script completes, there's no way for you to know whether or not the execution has passed or failed. I mean, it's printing out here, and you can look at the test results. However, in order for you to make this script actually useful and automatable, this script itself also has to return true or false, 1 or 0, 0 or 1 here, in order for whatever's automating, whatever's calling this script, ending up calling it, to know whether this script has passed successfully or not. And within a build procedure or a build pipeline, you want to know that your test, your build, your unit tests are run correctly before you want to stamp this piece of software as a release. So it's important for this to return 0 when test pass, and return 1 when the test fails. So we'll just add a couple of lines in here to fix that, to get that to work. So okay, break, and we'll just check it here. just add an exit status. We can put the global exit status here. There's a duplicate line, that's not good. Okay. Just default it to let's default it to fail. That's even better. Exit 1, exit status. So we'll check the file. Now we verify if the test results file, results.log, well, in that directory, local test, test has any failures. You get the picture on this one, but let's do the grep command. Grep failed. We'll do the -i to ignore the case. Local test result.log. Okay. We can be silent about this one. is and exit status is equal to this one. We set it $. There. That should do it. And then when it breaks out of here, we just return exit status. So exit status. And we'll just give it a echo here, just to show you what the exit status is. So, well, I can put it down here. That's fine. You can go echo test run completed. Exit status is $. Okay. Let's run this one. Oh, we did not have anything here. I believe that's because it's silent and because it failed local test. Let's try that. Let's put another one here. Echo. Just to see if Bash is doing anything funky here. Okay. So it is not, this grep is not working. Let's just manually, as I always do, let's just manually execute it. Grep -i failed. Local test /test results. Log. Okay. Now what does that give us? Echo $? Give a 1. So this should set this exit status, but it's not setting it. Now why is that? Okay. Let's do it this way then. Cut this out to but actually, oh, we fixed it. That's why, okay, nah, that's why I remember. Okay, we fixed it, so that's why is exit 1, because it cannot find failed. Okay. So it found failed, then the exit status should be inverted anyways. But either way, right now the problem is not returning this. So let's do it this way. We'll just store the exit status here. Equals dollar question mark. Okay, so now the exit status is shown. I think the dollar bracket syntax is not correct. But anyways, now that we have this, we have the exit status. But you notice that it's inverted. We should set it to 0 when it passes. This is a passing one. The test is passed. So we should invert it. So let's invert this one. Okay. I just had a thought. Instead of using if statements, we just have to exclusive OR this with 1, right? So we go like this. Exit status. I looked it up. That was the this symbol is the exclusive OR. So let's see if that works. I'm just curious. Okay, let's run this. Okay, good. Test case pass exit 0 pass. Test exit 0 says pass here. Now let's mess with it and change the make it the wrong transform again and make it fail. We should see exit 1, hopefully. There we go. We saw 1 fail and the exit status become 1. So there, guys, there you have it. We've set up a basically a mechanism where you can write your own tests for your transform, and these can be, you know, as complicated as you want them to be. If you wanted specific behaviors per test case, then, you know, depending on how your transform was written, you can test different fields, right? So your test case 1, maybe you have a certain scenario that you want to put into these values. You can test it. You just put all your test logic inside this filter. And the advantage of this one is that if you do it this way, then you don't need to you need to download or import any additional frameworks or things that are maintained outside of your own source code, with other test frameworks, right? You don't know how well supported they are and how well they'll actually run in your situations. But with this one, you can have um, uh, you can be, you can get more proficient with Logstash and the transform language and Ruby all at the same time, because you're also writing your test logic with it. So you're building when doing it this way, you build expertise in Logstash, which is what you want if you are writing Logstash pipelines, right? You don't want to be learning someone else's testing engine or test framework. You want to concentrate on being an expert at the Logstash language and the Ruby and what they offer. So writing your transform in Ruby and in the Logstash language configuration, and writing your test cases in it will subsequently make you a much better Logstash pipeline developer. So I hope this helped you. If you like this, please like and subscribe, and have a nice day.